Greetings, everybody. I'm Remarkable Republican, and I'm here to bring you the truth with true-flavored bias, as always. Now, I want to tell you about an encounter that I had with Matt Dillahunty. About a year ago, I called into the live show of Atheist Experience, and I got to talk with Matt, and I tried to lay out to him an argument that I've come up with about carbon dating and why it doesn't work, but he had no interest in hearing it. He cut me off at the pass, and that was that. Anyway, that argument, to sum it up really quickly, is that carbon-14 is not actually a thing because carbon only has a number of 6 on the periodic table of the elements. 14 is aluminum or something like that. Therefore, the idea of carbon-14 is an oxymoron. Anyway, I recently started a Twitter account, and then I remembered that I never got to finish my conversation with Matt, and I was excited at the prospect of coming back to this topic. So I sent him a tweet with the video where I lay out the argument in full. And actually, I was pleasantly surprised that he responded at all. I didn't expect it, given the disparity in size between, my channel and my following and his. And I will show you how that exchange went. In true atheistic fashion, Matt sends not one but 2 tweets to condescendingly tell me that he thinks I'm an idiot. So he says, "You say you studied this but got the basics wrong." The thing is, he's basically impugning my integrity. He's saying that I said that I studied it, but I obviously didn't. He says, "I don't believe you studied this at all." That is not so much an insult to my intelligence as an insult to my integrity, and I take that a lot more seriously. I don't know why he went to ad hom so quickly. He also left a link to an article which I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to explain how that article actually in no way proves his point and actually reinforces mine. Then below, he responds to the part of the tweet where I said that he had cut me off when I called into the Atheist Experience. He says, "I was right to cut you off. You fail at basic chemistry and at radiometric dating. Study more. Be impressed with yourself less." So the thing is, there he's justifying his own rudeness, and then again he's calling me an idiot, and then he's calling me a conceited idiot on top of that. So I don't know wherein the argument lies here or how he thinks he's refuted me. He just told me that he thinks that I'm wrong and that I fail and that I didn't study and that I lied about studying. So it's really not an argument that he's made, but a series of ad hominem attacks on my character, which I don't appreciate and I shall respond to now. So let's take a look at Matt Dillahunty's article from Wikipedia. The place where the true scientists with PhDs like Matt Dillahunty go to get their science information. So this article tells us that carbon-14 is a radioactive isotope of carbon with an atomic nucleus containing 6 protons and 8 neutrons. Its presence in organic materials is the basis of the radiocarbon dating method pioneered by Willard Libby, which is a terrible name, and colleagues in 1949 to date archaeological, geological, and hydrogeological samples. Carbon-14 was discovered on 27 February 1940 by Martin Kamen and Sam Rubin at the University of California Radiation Laboratory in Berkeley, California. Its existence had been suggested by Franz Curie in 1934. So, one thing that pops out to me immediately as a semi-professional historian is that what you see is there's a time delay between the theory and the discovery. And what happens in science, bad science, is that dishonest scientists will put the cart before the horse. They'll have an idea and then they'll do anything in their power to distort the data to prove that idea. And this is an obvious example here. So this Franz guy in 1934 went out and came up with this idea, and then in 1940 and 1949 other scientists took that idea and, quote, proved it by fabricating evidence. Further, the idea that this thing can be carbon but also have 6 protons and 8 neutrons doesn't make sense. So carbon has an atomic number of 6. That means that it should only have 6 protons and 6 neutrons. If it has 8 neutrons, it is no longer carbon. Neutrons are the things which give you the element. You count elements, they get their number from the number of neutrons that they have. Upward and onward, so let's look and see what else this little article tells us. There are 3 naturally occurring isotopes of carbon on Earth. 99% of carbon is carbon-12. Now I assume by carbon-12, and another article I looked up confirms it, by carbon-12 they mean carbon with 6 protons and 6 neutrons, which a normal educated person would call carbon. 1% is carbon-13, which would have 7 neutrons, so also not carbon. And carbon-14, which as we just showed is not carbon. Now, these all exist in the atmosphere. And the thing is, if you think about the idea of carbon-14, think about it a little bit more. As we said, elements are defined by the amount of neutrons that they have. So if carbon has 8 neutrons, carbon-14 I mean, that makes it oxygen. And oxygen is a very different thing from carbon. Carbon is flammable, and it's usually material, but it can also be a gas. Oxygen is that stuff plants produce that we breathe. There's a big difference there. I don't know why they went through this. And also, they said that basically more carbon-14 was produced because of nuclear testing. I never knew that nuclear testing was good for the environment. You know, that's just a crazy argument. And I was being sarcastic when I said that carbon-14 is obviously oxygen. I mean, clearly that's not accurate. But if you actually follow the logic that these scientists are trying to push off, then you'd have to believe that carbon-14 is oxygen, if you follow that to its logical conclusion. Now, here's another part that really exposes the charade. So the different isotopes of carbon do not differ appreciably in their chemical properties. So the idea here is that these things are all interchangeable, and that if you put, say, carbon-14 to replace real carbon in something, you wouldn't be able to tell a difference. So if you're trying to use something as a dating method and you can't tell that it's there because it has no noticeable or traceable effects, what the hell good is it as something that you're trying to use as a dating mechanism? Think about it. It doesn't make sense at all. Towards the end of the article, there's a subsection about carbon-14 in the human body, and the takeaway here is that carbon-14 is in everything. It's in everything we eat, everything we drink, it's in our bodies, it's in our dogs, it's in the air. So the question then becomes, if this thing is omnipresent and about the same levels literally everywhere, then the idea that it would ever fade away in something that has died, and that we could trace the level of fade over time to date something, is absurd. The levels are constant throughout the world, just like the level of gravity is constant everywhere on Earth. This is not something you can use as a measuring stick if everybody in this regard is completely equal. If you're trying to date something or measure something, there has to be some sort of inequality between the two things for measurement to make sense. I'm just applying common sense here, people. This is not hard. You too, if you apply common sense and reason, can refute the claims of dishonest scientists out there trying to deceive you. I have many other videos on topics like these, and I think that it's safe to say that Matt Dillahunty on the issue of carbon dating just got owned like a slave. Until next time, I'm Remarkable Republican, bringing you the truth with truth-flavored bias, signing out.